we seek to gather insights into a host of issues, especially concerning religion. Though hugely helpful, religion becomes a prison if it is not transcended. Beyond religion, we meet as human beings, free to love and cherish each other. Here, we celebrate our freedom to be richly and rationally human.
So Jesus made a very profound statement when he said, I am the way, the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. Now, I've read a lot of people talk, a lot of people have made lots of claims and assumptions about this statement that Jesus said. And I think in one context I read somebody say, this can only be the claims of a lunatic or somebody who's actually genuinely speaking the truth. Is this an exclusive claim? What would you say about this?
Yes. The question that you raise is very, very important in India, which is a multi-religious society. If you interpret this in an exclusive manner, then it becomes a hindrance. Now, if you look at the way Jesus lived and did his work, there were so many religions around him.
Yes.
You never see Jesus make a single negative or critical or condemnatory statement about any religion. On the other hand, he respects everyone, he welcomes everyone,
Yes.
and values everyone. So obviously, the meaning that is traditionally attached to the statement is not the meaning. And I have done my own seeking after the meaning of this teaching. Then I can only share with you what I have realized for myself. Jesus says, I am. It's a statement about being, I am. He says, you are the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. It pertains to who you are, your being,
Yes.
right? As against what you have.
Yes.
So you are. Now, when it comes to Jesus, the most fundamental statement he makes about himself is that I and my Father are one. Now, you can't understand Jesus without that statement. Now, therefore, Jesus represents a state of complete identification with God. There is no alienation between him and God.
Right.
That's the sense in which sonship must be understood. Right? Now, think of what John writes in the Gospel, chapter 1, verse 12. He says, to all who received him and believed in his name, to them he gave the power to become the children of God. So therefore, Jesus is the Son of God. He actually calls himself the Son of Man. And all of us as sons and daughters, children of God. Right? Now, in other words, just as Jesus was in a state of intimate identification with God, we also have a need to be in identification, in a state of oneness with God. That is actually the ideal condition for us. So the function of religion is to help us transcend the alienation between us and God. Right? That's how we become children of God. Now, if that is understood, that is the essence of the personality of God, of Jesus. So I am. What is that I am? That being of intimate oneness with God. That's what Jesus is.
Right.
Now, then he says, I am the way. So this is the way. The way of complete oneness with God, which then is not just a kind of vague abstract assumption. It expresses itself in all sorts of concrete, practical, experiential ways. All that he did.
Right.
The beauty of his life, the power of his life, the fruitfulness of his life, the mystery of his life, and the majesty of his personality. All that is comprehended in this. Now, then he says, I am the truth. Now, what is truth? Truth is a function of the whole. For example, if you have an episode what the media, for example, if something happens somewhere, depending on which newspaper you represent, you emphasize one aspect of the story, right? Now, the best way to tell a lie is to concentrate only one part of the event. Then you can distort it out of shape, and that's called half-truth. And we say half-truths are more dangerous than falsehood.
Right.
So truth is the ability to relate to the totality of a given situation. That's why Jesus said, I've come that they may have life in all its fullness. The problem with human beings is that because of our inherent limitations, we only want to relate to a part. For example, a husband and wife relationship. The man would want to relate to, if he is not a proper husband, would want to relate to the woman only as an object of his sexual delight. That's not a relationship.
Right.
Or if it's a relationship, it is a relationship of falsehood.
Right.
It's a relationship of deceit.
Right.
So it's a relationship that does not accommodate the truth.
Right.
So from this illustration, we can easily understand that truth means the whole of everything, whatever be. Now, if you work in a field, relate to the totality of it. If you are a student, you go to a school or college, relate to the whole of it.
Right.
An institution has a character, respect it, which doesn't happen in Kerala.
Right.
It doesn't happen in many parts of the world, which is unfortunate.
Right.
So there is falsehood in all of this.
Right.
In our relationship with God, we are not interested in God. We are only interested in what we can get out of God. That's falsehood.
Yes.
Utter falsehood.
Yes.
So Jesus relates to God for not what he can get out of God, but for what he can be in this world as a manifestation of God's love for the world.
Right.
That's what John says in 3:16. God so loved the world that he gave his only son. So Jesus came as a manifestation of God's love for the whole world. For the whole world. Right? So that the truth that Jesus represents is the truth of God's love for the whole world. Therefore, it cannot be contained within Christianity, contained within Judaism or the Jewish land or Jewish culture. So that's why we are Christians, otherwise we would not have it. If God's truth did not embrace the whole of, that's called wholeness. If God's truth did not involve wholeness, WHOLENSS, we would not have been Christians. Only the people in that place would have been Christians. Life is the same thing. Life must be lived only in its wholeness. You can of course live a life in its part, but that is such a mockery. Actually, you don't live, you only exist.
Right.
If you live at all, you must live life in its fullness. That is the principal message of Jesus, that they may have life in all its fullness. Right? So when Jesus embodies this kind of personality, that is a personality of intimate identification with God, he will certainly be the truth in the sense that the whole world is his concern, and his sense of responsibility does not exclude anyone. There is no exclusion in truth. Whatever excludes is untruth.
Right.
Whatever excludes is not life but death. Right? So then how can this passage be ever interpreted as an exclusionary claim? I don't understand. It's a total misrepresentation. It's a caricature of the teachings of Jesus Christ. If Jesus had any exclusionary interest, none of us would have been Christians. There would have been no Christianity in India or Europe or North America. I don't know how people can do this. So on the other hand, what does Jesus say? He says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Where is the exclusionary principle? He looks at this Roman centurion and says, not even in all of Israel. In Israel have I seen such faith. He looks at the woman from Canaan, the Canaanite woman. He says, I have not seen such faith anywhere among the Jews. No. From where have you imported this distortion of exclusion into the life and teachings of Jesus Christ? Now, this is very unfortunate. So, I hope the meaning of what Jesus said would be understood. It is an all-embracing personality that leaves nobody out and accepts everyone unconditionally. That's the most important thing. He doesn't say, if you come to me after you become a Christian, or after you become a born-again Christian. He doesn't say any of that sort. You have a problem, come to me. Find rest. That's all that he's saying. In fact, Jesus does not foreground religion at all. The problem with us is that our imagination is so colonized and corrupted by religion and religious obsession that we must misinterpret every teaching and every doing of Jesus from that mindset of exclusion. Therefore, we misread the meaning of Jesus' words, which is a very unfortunate thing. It must be avoided at all costs. It is this that has really limited the relevance of Jesus' work and teachings to a small group of people.
Right.